My name is Meredith Nagel, and today I'm going to be talking to you about leadership, my personal leadership philosophy, what that is, what it looks like, and just how I really came to adopt that. So let's get started just with a basic definition of leadership. What is leadership? So just according to Google, leadership is just the action of leading a group of people or an organization, or just having a position of a leader, but it doesn't really delve into how a leader does this or the goals of the group or just really the actions that a leader takes. So I'm going to go more into that. So leadership typically focuses on how leaders solve problems for their followers. But today, my focus is going to be on how I can help people tackle their own problems. So not what I'm solving for them, but how I can help them solve it for themselves. So throughout our lives, we all go through change. So things that will inevitably change are our assumptions, other people's assumptions, beliefs, attitudes, values, behaviors, environment. We can't control those things changing, but it's how we adapt and what we do with this change that really determines how we thrive in our environment. So that kind of brings me to my leadership philosophy, which is adaptive leadership. So adaptive leadership is how leaders help followers do the work that they need to do in order to adapt to the challenges and changes that they face. So once again, just clarify that it's how the leaders help the followers adapt to the changes internally, externally, surrounding environment that help them thrive. So this can look like a lot of different things, and you don't need to be in a specific position to be this type of leader, which I think is really awesome. You don't need to just be defined as a leader to help people do this, which is why I like it personally for myself. So people that don't even consider themselves leaders exhibit this sometimes. And so types of change that this can include can be self-change, organizational change, societal change, or change within the community. So just a little bit of why adaptive leadership for me. So this is a picture of my brother Patrick. He has a form of Asperger's. So growing up, he had a really tough time. He went to 4 different high schools, a wilderness program, a boarding school, flunked out of college, flunked out of community college, really struggled and couldn't find his way. And now, like this picture of him, obviously he's in the military and he's so successful at what he does and loves what he does and is so great. And so I'm going to kind of talk about why I think that he is a leader, which he wouldn't consider himself a leader, but why I view him as one, especially adaptive leadership, and how that kind of translated to me and why I believe that I exhibit adaptive leadership. So one of the main things that I believe he taught me about was success, and that two people taking the same path are not going to reach the same place. So I think that's really important to recognize, especially in adaptive leadership, is people are facing different problems and people are different internally. And so the same type of approach to leadership is not going to work for different people because people are different. And I think that's something that he really stressed within me, is because he didn't define himself in a box to be successful. So he really had to step outside and realize what worked for him in order to succeed and achieve his goals, which I think is really important to remember in adaptive leadership. Within adaptive leadership, there's 4 viewpoints or perspectives that are within it. So first, you have the systems. So what we need to realize for people is that problems are multidimensional. They're not just cut and dry sometimes. They have a lot of different parts to them. They're connected. Next is the biological perspective. So as a leader, you need to recognize that people evolve as a result of internal or external things, which influence them as a person. And the ability to adapt to these things that happen to them will determine how people thrive in certain circumstances. Number 3 is service orientation. So adaptive leader uses their own knowledge and expertise to serve their followers. And they diagnose the problem and suggest solutions, not necessarily just solving it for them. And then 4th, the psychotherapy perspective. So adaptive leaders understand that people need a supportive environment, and they distinguish their problems for them, and they resolve internal conflicts as well as external. So just a quick model of adaptive leadership. So some challenges that people may face are technical, and adaptive, So technical can be problems in the workplace. They look to the leader for the solution. It's relatively more cut and dry. There's known solutions because it's usually within an organization. technical and adaptive are a little bit less straightforward of solutions, and the leader acts as a resource but doesn't necessarily solve it for the person. And then adaptive challenges are hard to identify. There's a lot of possible solutions, and it requires changes in people's beliefs and attitudes a lot of times, which is the most difficult to overcome. And so what the adaptive leader does, the first is they get on the balcony. So they're looking from their followers' perspective. Put yourself in their shoes, kind of take a step back and look at the big picture. Then they identify the challenges that people are facing. They're helping them regulate their distress, keeping them calm. They're maintaining an environment that is conducive for change and learning and solutions. And then they're just helping the people work through it. So this is just kind of a breakdown of a process. So once again, taking a step back from the situation, what change is needed, providing direction for the followers, and really empowering them to change for themselves. So just to wrap up kind of what I talked about today, I think some things that are really important to remember is that my brother did have to adapt in order to succeed and get where he is. So he had to learn that he had to rely on his strengths and take a different path than, let's say, me to become successful. So I think that really is how I became to learn adaptive leadership, is because, I have to take a step back and look at what people are dealing with and how I can approach their problems and help them solve it, because I've really looked at how different my brother is from other people, and how he struggled to reach his goals because he didn't necessarily have the environment that allowed for his strengths to show. So thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed my take on adaptive leadership.